Welcome to the Epidemiology of Everyday Life lessons. This lesson concerns models. Models are central to how epidemiologists make sense of a very complicated world. Making and testing models is the central practice of epidemiologists. They use models to describe the health of populations, the distribution of health conditions, and the causes of ill health and health inequality. The Oxford English Dictionary defines models in an exceptionally detailed and helpful way. It defines models as a simplified or idealized description or conception of a particular system, situation, or process, often in mathematical terms, that is put forward as a basis for theoretical or empirical understanding, or for calculations, predictions, etc. A conceptual or mental representation of something. The two components in bold provide especially good guidance for us. The first, simplified or idealized description or conception, says that models should be simple. They should not describe the world in all of its messy detail. Models give us a way to pare down reality to its important components. The second, put forward as a basis for theoretical or empirical understanding, tells us that models describe reality. In other words, while they come from our minds, they explain relationships that exist beyond the mind of any single person or group of people. As the famous mathematician and statistician George Box is purported to have said, all models are wrong, but some are useful. Whether he or someone else actually said this is not clear. Regardless of who actually said it, though, the meaning holds. Because models simplify the world around us, they all, by definition, get things wrong about the world. It would be a fool's errand to try to estimate a model that truly represents reality. We want simplifications that give us a deeper knowledge about the world and its relationships. And a perfectly good model for one situation might be a terrible model for another. Let's think about an analogy. Pretend you are about to go on a hike. You prepare your gear, you get ready to go, and you start on your hike. You expect a relatively easy, flat hike. Imagine you're surprised then when you show up and the path requires that you climb up mountains. That nice leisurely hike you were anticipating has turned into something far different. A useful model of the planet for your purpose would be a topographical map that shows the inclines and descents that you will travel along certain paths. You can plan a nice leisurely walk or a more intense climb if you have that map. But that map won't be so helpful if you're driving a car. Inclines and descents don't matter much, especially if you're driving a car with an automatic transmission. The engine takes care of the terrain for you, and it's but an afterthought to you as a driver. If you took the topographical map, however, you might get lost trying to find the roads among all the elevation lines and end up wrecking your car. Instead, a road map, like Google Maps or Apple Maps, would help you more. You can find your destination, your route, and something about traffic along the way. That way, you can find the fastest route to your destination and get where you need to go safely. Neither map provides bogus information, but both reduce the Earth into a single one of its dimensions: elevation for the topographic map and road conditions for the driving map. Both maps are wrong. The topographic map doesn't include information about traffic, and the driving map doesn't include information about the elevation. But they both serve as useful guides based on the purposes for which they were designed. Based on this analogy to maps, let's come up with a list of requirements that will help us design good models. First, we need some variance. We need to know how things change over time or place. Without any differences, we cannot really explain the differences that exist in the world. Second, we use our model to know what to expect given certain conditions. We want the model to guide our educated guesses about what we can expect. Finally, we want our model to be formal. The formality of the relationship provides a basis for us to test our model and for others to replicate its findings at other times or places. As we think about models, we should always remember that models are properties of the world. We do our best to gather data to estimate models with all of the errors associated with our wrong but useful model, but the model itself exists in the world. I will close with the example of Jon Snow, about whom you learned earlier. His model consisted of something in the water, what we'd eventually learn were bacteria, that made people ill. What scientists would ultimately discover, well after Jon Snow's time, is that bacteria really do exist, that a certain type cause cholera, and that cholera causes a certain type of reaction in the body that could be viewed by Jon Snow. But Jon Snow's model couldn't account for all of that, in part because The tools to study the relationship had not yet even been invented. But he could gather the data from the world, namely the locations of the closest pumps and the death rates around those pumps. Those data, though imperfect, provided evidence to help him test his model of the germ theory of disease. So, to review, models are simplified descriptions to understand the world. They should be useful because they're all wrong. Models describe the world, not the data that we collect to observe the world. Models should explain variance, lead to expected values, and be formally expressed. So that, my friends, sums up models. Thank you for joining this installment of Epidemiology of Everyday Life Lessons, and I hope to see you again soon.